as I'm talking, I'm like thinking, what are you saying?
In your head?
Like I can hear, yeah.
Multitask is nice. Okay.
It's like those people that can like play an instrument, like play an instrument and then also inhale at the same time.
Yeah, or those people
I don't know
that
how
can
you do that.
inhale or when they, other people that, not like the mimes, when you, like
Yeah.
Jeff.
What?
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, the ventriloquist.
Yeah, the ventriloquist, yeah.
You said Jeff, I'm like, I know what that is.
Yes. Welcome to Downshift, everyone. My name is Paulo.
And my name is Matt, and earlier this year we spent a lot of time in the M3 competition, put it around track, and was really impressed with it. But it's the M4 that sees the LCI for this year. And thanks to our friends at International BMW, we're here with the hardcore CS version. So I'm gonna walk you around and show you all the things that are different and unique versus the competition.
Yeah, then we'll get behind the wheel, take a little bit of drive, talk about standouts and how it compares to the competition, the CSL, potentially competitors. We'll see.
Let's do it. So at the top of the video, I think it's only right that we start with the basics here. Like for one, what is this? Well, this M4 CS is based on the LCI or refreshed 2025 BMW M4. 2 years ago, we got a super limited, super track focused M4 in CSL to celebrate 50 years of the M division. But this CS version starts with that hardcore CSL mold and aims to make it more accessible without losing the soul and mission of the original CSL car. The CS here starts at just under $125,000, that's $16,000 less than the CSL that it's based, but it's also more attainable as it won't be produced in such limited numbers. Last year there was an M3 CS, and this LCI M4 will follow that recipe pretty closely. So the result of which is the most hardcore M4 that you can drive on the street every single day. But this thing's a lot more expensive than the normal M4 competition, and we like to see more money equate to more power. Now it starts the same on paper, 3 liters, twin turbo, inline 6, S58 engine, but they've got a new lightweight crankshaft, you've got forged pistons here, and boost increases to 30.5 PSI. Horsepower is 543 horsepower, that's 20 more, and 479 pound-feet, which is the same that you get in the comp. But those numbers, that 543 and 479, are the same as the CSL. Of course, it all runs through the same ZF 8-speed transmission, the best torque converter in the game, and 0 to 60 is done in 3.4 seconds, which is much quicker than the CSL due to the all-wheel drive traction that you get here. And all the way topped out, you're looking at 188 miles an hour. But if your chief concern is horsepower, then you've got the idea of this car all wrong. If you're just building a muscle car, then sure, adding more power is gonna do the trick, but this is a pretty hardcore sports coupe, and that means adding lightness is more key. Overall, the CS here saves 77 pounds from the M4 competition car, with things like a carbon fiber hood with the M logo etched into the underside. You've also got a carbon fiber roof and more aggressive carbon fiber splitter and intakes on the front. They look incredibly dramatic in Batman, especially in this all black spec. You've got a carbon diffuser out back, and you've got a carbon wing. It's not the ducktail, but it still looks cool. And you've got a revised exhaust system with titanium rear silencers that take out 8 pounds of weight. It sounds more raw and less resonated, so it sounds like a more authentic sports car. And then inside the cabin, the center console has been stripped down and carbon fibered out, so much so that you forego cup holders because cup holders would be too soft. Now that full 77 pound number might include the carbon ceramic brakes that you can get here. This car is equipped with the steels, but still, it's a lot of weight savings. So more power and less weight. We've got 2 of the 3 down, but this also brings some added rigidity. Overall, the car is just entirely more rigid pretty much everywhere, but most specifically, you've got revised engine mounts that are more rigid and allow for quicker power delivery and more dynamic engine response. You've also got this lightweight strut brace that you can see in the engine bay. And of course, there's more stuff going on all throughout the car under the skin, but it's most visible and most on display underneath the hood here, underneath the carbon M hood, to be specific. So you've added power to the car, you've taken weight out of the car, and you've made the entire chassis more rigid. Well, that means things like the wheels and differential and other things need to be revised as well, the setup to be specific. Like if you're gonna take this thing to the track, which you probably should, and you'd be very at home there, you've got a dedicated cooler for your rear differential so things don't overheat. You've of course got the M adaptive suspension, but that's been retuned for a more disciplined chassis to reflect that more rigid chassis at its core. You've also got new anti-roll bars, additional helper springs, and on your tires, you've got a revised camber geometry. Every inch of this car has been gone over to make sure that it's as refined and hardcore and focused as any M4 ever created, minus the CSL. And I mentioned it before, but there's been changes going on the interior to reflect all the changes that have happened on the outside too. Like for one, you have a new flat bottom carbon fiber Alcantara wrapped red noon markered M-stitched steering wheel that looks fantastic. You've got a full carbon fiber interior actually on your dash. Your whole center console has been completely stripped down for weight. You lose things like cup holders because again, that's not hardcore enough. And you get the carbon bucket seats. They're not quite as hardcore as the carbon buckets that you get in the CSL, but they still save weight. And they add some cool detailing like the perforated red and black leather and the stitching and the CS details and trimming. And you can tell too that they've removed some of that isolation and some of that refinement that you usually get from a BMW. Like I hear a little bit of creaking from this carbon fiber center tunnel, and I also hear a little bit more of what's going on from the differential out back, from the tires, from the brakes, just because there's a little bit less sound deadening, again, to save weight. And compared to the hardcore track use CSL that this thing is based off of, they've added back in some daily ability. Like of course you see here we have a normal trunk that you'd see from an M4, whether comp or otherwise. But you also have the rear seats that have been put back in the car as the CSL removed them. It's also got X-Drive, all-wheel drive, which is fantastic for winter here in Wisconsin, and actually makes it quicker than the CSL due to the traction advantage. It's the same X-Drive system that you get from the competition, so it's rear biased and can disconnect the front entirely to go rear wheel drive. You've of course got a drift mode, lap timer, etc. But speaking of daily ability, you've got a head-up display, fully digital instrument cluster, the whole iDrive thing. It's fantastic. You've got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and you even have powered and heated front seats. It's pretty good. And if I'm going to spend $125,000 on an M4, which is what this is tested at, I probably want a couple spec choices. And this thing has some great options. In terms of paint, you can go for Isle of Man Frozen. That's that really cool green. You've got Riviera Blue, Brooklyn Gray, Classic, and here we've got our Sapphire Black. The headlights will be amber because motorsport, and the grille will be frameless and have the red rim because, of course, you have to differentiate yourself from the competitions. And the carbon fiber hood will only be partially painted so you can see the beauty even from outside the car. In terms of wheels, you've got 19s in the front, 20s in the back. We're used to seeing that. 275 tires on the front, 285s on the back. You can either get them in matte black like we have here or matte gold, which looks proper cool. And then in terms of brakes, if you go for the normal steels, then you can get either red or black calipers. But if you go up to the carbon ceramics, you can get red or gold calipers. In terms of tires, as standard, you get a Michelin Pilot Sport 4S, a fantastic, aggressive, sporty tire. But if you want more, you can go for the track pack, which will get you the Cup 2Rs. All the way back, the taillights are the strand design, lifted straight from the CSL and look incredible. And inside, I hope you like black and red, because that's what you're gonna get. And as a little cherry on top, all of the M4s that you see on your screen while you're operating the car have the exposed carbon and the carbon fiber roof, and all of them match your spec depending on what color you get. The only weird quirk here is we've got the satin black finished wheels, but according to the screen, we've got the satin gold. Still, looks fantastic. We're gonna go for a bit of a drive. Now, I don't have a lot of time with the car, so this is gonna be kind of raw first impressions. I've driven around a little bit to get some ideas of what to talk to you about, but we're also gonna focus mostly on how this is on the street because there's a bunch of other videos that talk about the track usage. Now, the first thing that's immediately apparent is it does feel more rigid. It feels like it's more reactive, it's more on its toes. The steering is also noticeably improved. I feel like I get so much more information from the front tires through the steering wheel, which is really, really nice. Very, very welcome there. But it does just feel a little bit more, I don't necessarily want to use the word delicate, but it's more pointy, it's more sharp. It's not twitchy, but it's very keyed up and it is very ready to go. There's also some throttle mapping and gear changes that they've done to make it feel more aggressive, and it does feel like you can get into power quicker and easier, which is just kind of cool. The whole thing feels more reactive. It just straight up feels faster and better. And I think that's what's kind of crazy. We just spent a bunch of time earlier this year in the M3 competition, even on track, and that was amazing. It's an incredible car, that thing. So I didn't really think that there was much of a jump to be made with, taking some weight out, adding some power, but this does feel like a different car. This does feel like a more keyed up, like a more serious, like a more emotional, raw car, and it's really cool. And then on the flip side, when I'm just driving it around here in West Dallas and some of the worst roads in Milwaukee, it's fine. It's surprisingly docile. It starts up and idles pretty loud, but once it idles down, then it's relatively tame. It's still fast as hell, but over broken pavement, it's fine. You get some noise from the tires, of course, the Pilot Sport 4S's, but in terms of the actual suspension and ride, this rides better than my M340. This rides almost as good as the M3 Competition X-Drive. Of course, they've retuned the damping for the E-adaptive dampers, so there's a little bit difference in terms of rebound, but at no point does it feel like it's beating me up. At no point does it feel crashy or harsh. And that's really the thing that I was kind of worried about going into this is, okay, this is like the hardcore street version, and BMW is known for making things maybe a little bit too hardcore, but here in the M4 CS, I think it's the Goldilocks zone. This is a brilliant, brilliant car. Let's get with Paulo. Go for a bit more of a drive.
I mean, it's nice you get rear seats, and like it actually looks like there is some room back there.
I actually did sit back there, and like
behind you right
I
now.
have zero headroom, but
you could for
knee
sure
room, I could
scoot
be
up.
there. Yeah.
And there's plenty of room.
Yeah,
back
leg room's
there.
not really the problem. It's headroom that's the problem back there.
Yeah.
Yeah. M4 CS. Oh, that's where it wakes up. Oh my god, dude.
Oh.
It's fast.
I thought that was.
I think it's a Subaru. But anyway.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking as I was kind of like between filming this morning that it's like 360 days from the day of this filming to where I spent like a week and a half in an M4 competition out in Southern California, over 1,000 miles. So like that's still fairly fresh in my mind. And the things that stand out from this is like, you hear about, you know, like limited Porsche editions, BMW editions. Okay, they took some weight out, they had a little bit more power. How different is it really? This is pretty different.
Yeah.
This is pretty different. And I think even you stepped behind the wheel as we were shooting rollers and we were on the phone, you're like, oh, this is violent.
It feels very violent. Yeah, in a good way though, in like a controlled manner.
But I think that's kind of what I would want from a CS.
Yes.
If I'm gonna spend $30,000 more for over a competition, I want to get more from the steering. I want to feel like the front end is more reactive, and it is. And I want it to feel violent because I feel like then I'm getting something for my money.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a little bit more, isn't it? It's technically like 35, closer to 40.
Yeah, because I mean,
$1,000 more dollars. And
this comes pretty loaded out, so you could add more for like the carbon ceramics and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
As tested here with the steel brakes, we're at 125.
Yeah.
So yeah, versus where a comp starts, yeah, you're looking at like almost 40 grand. And that's a lot of money. That's like 50% of what the comp starts at.
Yeah.
But you are getting something, I think, pretty special here.
It's very special.
It doesn't necessarily, it's obviously like a more special version of a car that exists, but it does feel like its own thing. Like there's so much more reactivity from the front end. I get more from the steering. The damping is still good enough to be on the road here.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the thing that we were impressed with the M3 comp earlier this year. And then with this too, I was half expecting when I showed up today, like, oh my God, like we're driving through West Dallas. The roads are terrible. This is gonna be super brutal. But actually with the adaptive dampers here, it's fine.
Yeah, no, it's...
And then it's just dumb fast.
Blisteringly quick.
Just crazy fast.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty impressive what, you know, a tune and some weight reduction can actually do to the experience.
That's right. Yeah, and so you got titanium something going on with the exhaust, 77 pounds or thereabouts taken out of the car. The thing that I did notice, especially when the car was cold, I could hear things kind of creaking and rattling around a little bit, like specifically in the center console, because they've taken out some of those refinements, some of those like, you know, like sound deadening, like all that stuff. So I hear more of the brakes, I hear more of the differential, I hear more of the drive line. And that kind of makes it feel more special. I feel like I'm closer to the car.
Yeah.
And it'll take a corner that's a 90-degree corner and make it feel like a 45-degree corner.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing. It's nothing to this car.
I do wish they had a manual though.
Yeah.
I'm glad they brought the all-wheel drive system. I do wish they had the manual. Well, obviously this gearbox is incredible.
Well, I think that's kind of the funny thing. Like the CS is supposed to be the CSL that's made more dailyable.
Yes, right.
And so you get back seats and you get all-wheel drive. But you know what I use every single day in my car? A cup holder. You know what I could use in this car?
Well, you have one in the door.
A cup holder.
You have one in the door.
I do have one in the door pocket, but I like it in the middle.
You discredit the door one.
But that, to be fair, that said, if I have to forego a cup holder for this, like, all this carbon fiber in here, and there's a crap load, I think it's okay.
These seats are also incredibly comfortable. I think
They're good.
that is a bit surprising. Just by the look of them, they don't look like they would be very comfortable, but they are very impressive.
Yeah, I was super impressed because these are very similar to the comp carbon buckets that I spent 1,000 miles in California. And like getting over the hip bolster is annoying, and I definitely feel like you're gonna mess with the leather over time. But actually sitting in these seats, super comfy.
Yeah.
Like actually comfy, like surprisingly so. I don't know, they wanted to bring daily practicality and usability back from the CSL with the power, with the weight reduction, and I think they've done that. I think they've done a great job.
It's a track weapon that you can daily.
Yeah, I'm really impressed.
And I like the spec. I think BMW does really good with
God, the shifts.
how they spec cars from factory. I mean, it's glorious to look at. And there's so many different, like the green paint with the gold wheels, like that looks really good. I think this spec looks actually really good, even though, I mean, it's like the cheapest spec you can get, but it still looks really, really good.
I think a lot of people would buy this spec. It's black on black with some of the red accents. It's like
Subtle,
classic sporty car. It's exactly your spec. This is your Genesis, but just on an M4 CS.
Yes.
So yeah, I have to say I'm impressed. This thing is really cool. I'm surprised at how different this is. Now, granted, we didn't take it off on track or anything like that, but I'm impressed how much more special this feels than an M4 comp. So thank you to our friends at International BMW for letting us have a go. Thank you to you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.